Welcome, everybody. If you're just joining tonight's call, we are ready to get started. This is a live Q&A call, a live coaching call. Our goal on this call is to help you have a fantastic experience with this fiber and fasting protocol. We want to help you get results. We want to help you love your experience. And if you're having challenges, we want to help you overcome those challenges. Many of you are already on the protocol and are having a great time. Some of you may not have started the protocol yet. So to begin these calls, I usually like to explain some of the basics behind the protocol, and I'll try to do that in abbreviated format tonight because I really want to make sure we spend lots of time with our special guests and also with the questions that you may have. In a moment, I'm going to reach out. Thanks, Eric Roberts. It's the bomb. I'm going to reach out and ask for some participation. So listen up and be ready for that participation. I'm really curious to know if there's anybody on this call who's been on the protocol for, any given period of time, I suppose, who's having a good experience. We love to hear about your wins, and sometimes this call is where I get to hear about your wins. So hold that thought. If you've got some good wins, I want to ask for those in just a second. To begin, let me go ahead and share my screen and kind of set the table. Some of you may be familiar with me because maybe you've seen me on social media. Over the last 12 months, I've kind of blown up on social media, which I never intended to do. In fact, that's very weird. I'm a pretty private person, and I really don't like social media for the most part. But I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and we'll go from there. So my name's Trent. I'm from Utah, and this is my dad. My dad, 6 years ago, died from stage 4 colon cancer. My dad was the best man that I know. He was my hero. He was my biggest fan. And when my dad got sick, I became very desperate and went into a panic trying to save my dying father. Unfortunately, I'm not a doctor or a nurse or a medical professional of any kind. And so who am I to try and save this wonderful man, right? What I started to do is read everything I could. I went down the rabbit hole on what was ailing my dad and tried to learn as much as possible. And I learned a lot from some of the brightest and best scientists in the world. I literally looked all over the world. I looked up an Italian doctor who's now in the United States. His name's Dr. Walter Longo. And Dr. Longo was talking about fasting and how fasting is very, very good for people with my dad's problems. I probably should tell you what some of my dad's problems were. So my dad was the greatest guy in the world, but he had the world's worst diet. Every time he would get stressed or go through, problems, he would always turn to food. And the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I'm the exact same way. I've struggled with snacking and overeating most of my life. I'm always, up until the last 12 months or so, I've always historically been on a diet. And if I'm not on a diet, I'm putting on weight, right? And so I've gone up and down and always yo-yoed and just got super frustrated. But that was my dad. He was always struggling with his weight. He had prediabetes. He was probably an undiagnosed type 2 diabetic, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. He was insulin resistant. We're going to talk about that a lot on this call. It's going to be a short call, but we're going to talk a lot about insulin resistance. My dad had psoriasis all over his body, and so you'd never see my dad. Even at a swimming pool in 100-degree weather, he would be wearing long pants and long sleeves because he was so embarrassed of his skin. After I learned all this stuff from the greatest scientists that I could find, I realized there was a huge disconnect between what the brightest and best scientists know and what the medical community was practicing. Now, this is not, I love the medical community. My doctor is one of the best men that I know. I'm just saying that there was a disconnect there, right? And if my dad knew what we're about to talk about on this call 10 years ago, I know that he would be alive today. So because one of you probably has a dad or a mom or a brother or a sister, or maybe you yourself is struggling with some of these problems, we're going to talk about how to address the root cause of these problems and really, hopefully, try and reverse it once and for all. Okay, so that's who I am. This is my dad, and this is why I've been talking about this and studying this so deeply. Now, over the last 12 months, I've started to get a bunch of messages from strangers who have been following the protocol that we're going to talk about tonight. And these are people I've never met in my life. These are strangers, okay? And some of you are on the protocol right now. And if you're on the protocol and you're having results, let's say that you're really happy with the way things are going. Maybe you got blood work. Maybe you were on medications, you're no longer on the medications. If you've been doing this fiber and fasting protocol and you don't mind sharing, I would be interested in the comments on the chat if you could just give us a little sentence or two about what this protocol has done for you. That would be great. And we'll read some of those. But while we're waiting for those to come in, this is a man that I've never met in my life. He went on the protocol. He quickly lost about 40 pounds. About 40 pounds. And he reversed his non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Amazing. This is his wife. She's become a great friend of mine. She's a nurse from Indiana. Her name is Crystal. She has Hashimoto's, which is a serious thyroid condition. Crystal's lost over 50 pounds. 12 of her medications that she was on before, she's no longer on those medications. I started to get messages from strangers all over the world that I've never met. Some of them had lost over 100 pounds, right? They went from this to this, looking like a completely different person, losing 125 pounds, going from an A1C 14.7 down to now a 5.0 or something like that, not even a pre-diabetic anymore. People effectively reversing their type 2 diabetes, getting off their medications. And I started to get hundreds of these messages from strangers. And I mean, some of these people were trying to credit me. And by the way, I'm no one. They were trying to credit me, of all people, this random dude that they were listening to on TikTok, saying that this had completely changed or saved their life, saying that this had kept them out of the hospital. Some people saying that their blood sugars were in the 700s until they found this. And so I realized we've got something really, really special here that the whole world needs to know about. Now, I'm going to stop my screen share just for a second because I want to read some of the comments. I've lost 11 pounds since end of April. Ooh, Stephen D. Ward said, I will participate. And Stephen, I owe you a reply email. I read your email and man, am I excited about your results. It's just awesome. Paige says, I've lost 11 pounds since end of April, down 32 pounds, 26 inches of belly fat, lipid blood work back to normal. My triglycerides went from 247 to 87 in a few months. I dropped 2 pant sizes, lost 25 pounds and brought my blood sugar into normal range. Gout is gone. Gosh, that should be the tagline of this. Gout is gone, and lost 20 pounds using it for over a month now. I've lost about 12 pounds on the Feel Great system since April. 45 pounds down. Great. Now finally understand true hunger. Lost 12 pounds in 2 months. More energy. Stopped drinking coffee. Surprisingly feel amazing. Lowered my A1C from an 8.9 to a 5.8 in 3 months. Lost 30 pounds in the first 90 days. This has helped me with my A1C, helped me with my blood sugar. My doc took me off one of my medications. I've lost my cravings for sugar and sweets. I'm down 30.7 pounds. I feel so good. This is my new best friend now. Oh, that's awesome, Steph. Nori Hendricks, 37.5 pounds down, no longer type 2, went from 14 to, I can't read the rest of it because there's something in the way, but in 6.5 months. John Cox, okay, saw my neurologist yesterday. I've lost 29 pounds. He asked if I was on the neuropathy meds. Nope, pain level 0. He was like, I don't need to see you again. You have reversed. Megan Brown, lost 20 pounds, normalized my triglycerides and pre-diabetes. A1C, improved my mood and energy. HDL at 98. I mean, guys, this is crazy, right? 47 pounds down in 5 weeks. Okay, Patrick J., that might be a record. 47 pounds in 5 weeks. We might need to feel your forehead and make sure you're not in serious medical trouble because that's a lot of weight. That's awesome. Christy Straw Wilson, lost 5 pounds in 2 months, but lost more inches, skin tags decreasing. Trent, wrong key. Uh-oh. Thanks, Jim. I'll look into that. Any caffeine in the Unimate. My heart is very sensitive to caffeine, and I have an inappropriate sinus tachycardia. We'll talk about that. Awesome, John. Okay, this is great. All right. So, Jim is saying I have the wrong key. Jim is helping me with my live stream. Let's see if I can fix this real fast for Jim. And then we'll get right back to the action. Guys, that was so cool. Oh, thank you for so many of you that are sharing your wins. And we are so happy for you. I'm sincerely just so happy for you. Excellent, excellent job. Okay. Let's see here. Let me see what I'm doing wrong, Jim. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can fix it. We're streaming over multiple platforms tonight, and we're really trying to do this the right way. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Jim's asking me to unmute him. Jim's helping me with the technical side of things. Of course, I'm the one to ruin this. All right, Jim, you're off mute.
All right, brother. So
should I close this stream and open a new one?
Close the restream one. Leave your Zoom going just fine the way that
Jim
it
Barbecue, you there?
is. Yes, I am. Can you
Eddie
not hear me?
Hansen, thanks so much for the vote of encouragement. Sometimes technical stuff gets me a little flustered.
Trent. Okay, so can you hear me, Trent?
Gotcha. Yep.
Okay, so don't do anything with your Zoom side, but you chose that when we crashed the morning one, I recreated a morning one, and that's the key that you chose. So
Okay.
So copy. There's another one in there for, it says 6 p.m. Use that key.
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
So go down to the more here. Go down to the more and use that key.
Okay. I will have to stop this live stream to do that.
Nope. Yeah, the restream one, not your Zoom. Don't stop your Zoom. Just go to your more. Go down to your more.
On Zoom or restream?
On Zoom.
Okay. When I go to more.
Yep. And now stream from an alternate thing.
No, it just says stop live stream.
Okay, that will stop the restream one, I think.
Okay. So stop.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We're going to stop it and then we'll try again. And if it doesn't work, we'll just carry on. Sorry, Jim.
Yep. Yep.
Thanks, everybody, for your patience. Mild technical difficulty. We'll be right back online. And all right.
I think that will fix it.
Looks like this is going to work. Yep. All right, we're going to be in business. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, buddy.
Thanks, everybody, for your patience. Of course, if there's something that I can potentially do to screw something up, I'll find a way to do it. So
we're good, brother. I think if you got that new key in there, I think that's what we need.
Okay.
And I think you just did it.
Yeah.
Let me look. I'm checking right now. Looks like it is on yours. Yep. I think you're live on yours.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Hi, brother.
Away we go. Okay, so how are people getting these crazy results and how can we make it happen for you or your loved one, right? Well, the science behind this is actually really, really, really simple. And there's no magic pills. There's no tricks. There's just some really basic stuff that anybody can do that will help them address the root cause of these problems. So if you're somebody that struggles with excess body fat, if you're somebody that struggles with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, if you've got skin tags, if you feel tired after meals, if you feel like you're constantly craving sugary, salty foods, if you feel like you have skin problems or mental health problems, migraine headaches, brain fog, anxiety, depression. I know this sounds like a lot and it sounds like this is the cure-all for everything. But what we're talking about specifically is something called insulin resistance, okay? And insulin resistance is like the one little thing that can ruin everything. Insulin resistance is a big, big problem, and we are all becoming insulin resistant. We started becoming insulin resistant when we started eating and snacking all the time, and when the food that we were eating and snacking with was fiber-stripped processed food. Now, we're not going to go into as much detail as we usually do, especially with the technical delay we just had, but this is a big, big problem. And if you have any of these problems, if you can identify with one or more of these things, we've got good news. There's lots of symptoms. And for women, things like PCOS, the number one contributor to PCOS is insulin resistance. The number one contributor to erectile dysfunction in men, insulin resistance. Brain fog, anxiety, depression, all of these things back to insulin resistance. We're not just talking about a few people here. We're talking about arguably about 50% of adults now, okay? Everybody is becoming pre-diabetic. And the bigger problem is that there's zero awareness. 9 out of 10 of the people that have it have no idea that they have it. And so they start to have some of these symptoms and we go see our doctor because we've got these symptoms. And the doctors have medications and treatments to help us with these symptoms, right? And some of them are life-saving, but they're not really addressing the root cause. What they're really addressing is the symptoms. And so as long as we keep taking the medications or going in for treatments, then we will be stuck indefinitely, right? We will be literally using these treatments indefinitely. I don't want to do that. Most people I know don't want to do that. And so there's got to be a better way. We're going to talk about a better way. And the better way is to address it at the root. You kill the root, you kill the tree often, right? So in my videos, I talk a lot about how fiber is being removed from everything. Fiber in nature is around everything, and food makers are removing it from everything. They do this for a couple of reasons. One is to improve the shelf life. When they remove fiber from food, they can put the bread on the shelf much longer before it spoils. That's good for them. The other reason they do it is when you remove fiber from food, you remove the satiety from food, okay? This is like if there was a way for Jiffy Lube to convince you that in order to keep your car running properly, you needed to change your oil every single month. That would be great for Jiffy Lube and not so good for your automobile, right? Food makers have done this by taking fiber out of food, and fiber literally surrounds everything in nature. Even sugar itself comes packaged in fiber, right? By taking fiber out, it has removed the satiety. Fiber is what keeps you feeling full and helps with weight management. This is one of the reasons why it's advantageous to remove it from food. We'll buy more food, right? Health benefits of fiber. If you have diabetes or prediabetes, fiber is your friend. It's what helps with blood sugar control. It's what helps protect your heart. Fiber prevents your body from taking in some fat and cholesterol, lowering your triglyceride and cholesterol levels. Fiber is what we need for digestive health. We have a gut health epidemic. Why? Because our ancestors were eating 100 grams of fiber per day, and fiber is food for the microbes in our gut. And the average American today is only eating 12 grams of fiber. This is horrendous. 50 years ago, a doctor named Dennis Burkitt predicted that if you remove fiber from food, you're going to have a bunch of epidemics. And that's exactly where we are today, right here. Okay. So what do we do about it? Well, there was a study done. This study was done by the University of Sydney. Now, this is important because they invented the glycemic index. These doctors know more about blood sugar control than arguably anybody on the planet. And if you type in glycemicindex.com, it will take you to the University of Sydney's website. Again, they invented it. And what they said, hey, if we know that the average Joe is literally dying and becoming insulin resistant because they're eating too much fiber stripped foods, why don't we just bring the fiber back? I mean, if the removal of fiber is what's making everybody sick, let's bring the fiber back. What if we could take a packet of the most potent soluble and insoluble plant fibers, no medications, no drugs, just fiber, and we could blend it up, and people could have it literally in their back pocket and whip it out before a meal. And sure enough, when you have this blend of plant fiber before your meals, blood sugar reduces by 20 to 30%. Now, this is huge, huge news to anybody that's struggling with these things and doesn't want to be on medication indefinitely, doesn't want to lose their legs, doesn't want to lose their eyesight or their lives, right? This is also huge news to anybody that wants to be preventative, to anybody that's struggling with their weight, to anybody that just cannot see, anybody with insulin resistance. But while this should have been big news, nobody's talked about it. In fact, there's hundreds of studies now that prove the same thing, and nobody cares. And that's because there's no way that anybody can make money on you finding out about this, right? If a pharmaceutical company could somehow patent this, then yeah, they'd put it into a drug and you'd be on it, right? Another study that was done by a doctor in Canada, his name was Jason Fung. Now, he's kind of a YouTube celebrity now because what he's done has been incredible. But 10 years ago, and even now, in some circles, he's considered a quack. He is a joke. He is an insult to the medical community, according to some people, not according to me. I think he's brilliant. And the reason why he gets all this hate is because he went out there and stuck out his chest and said, you know what? I'm going to show the world that it is possible to reverse type 2 diabetes naturally. And the world didn't like that because it's always been that type 2 diabetes is a progressive chronic thing, right? But sure enough, in Fung's clinic at the University of Toronto, most of the patients with type 2 diabetes had a complete reversal of the disease and are off all their medications in 3 to 6 months. Well, how did he do that? He did it with fasting. And so what we know is that over the last 50 years, all of us, you, me, your neighbor, we've all been on this, oops, I said 50 pounds, 50 years over the last 50 years, we've all been on a diet. It's a diet unlike anything we've ever done, and it is a fad diet. We're going to fix it. The fad diet is this diet where we are eating and snacking all the time. Throughout all of human history, we have lived in an environment of food scarcity. But now there are hundreds of thousands of calories in our fridge, in our pantry, at our fingertips 24/7. This is unprecedented. We're not ready for this. And this is destroying human health. You see, just 50 years ago, when your grandparents asked their parents for a snack, the answer was absolutely not. You will spoil your dinner. And after dinner, if they wanted a snack before bed, the answer was absolutely not. You should have eaten your dinner, right? But now in the last 50 years, it has become normal to eat and snack all the time. The pantry and the fridge is open to my kids whenever they want a snack. This is the fad. This is not normal. It is not good. And here is why. This is what Jason Fung figured out, right? If we are eating and snacking all the time, our blood sugar, that's the blue line, is constantly spiking and crashing, especially when we're eating a diet that's high in refined carbohydrates. This will cause it to spike and crash, okay? So when you have juice and toast for breakfast, when you have a bagel, when you have fruit and yogurt, when you have a Starbucks coffee with sugar and cream in it, right? Any refined carbohydrate that you have is going to cause a blood sugar spike. And when blood sugar is spiking, insulin has to spike. If it doesn't, we will die. Insulin's job is to drive all the glucose, all the sugar that's in our blood, and push it into cells. It could go to our liver cells, our muscle cells, or our fat cells. Insulin's job is to clean up all that excess glucose in the blood. And so this causes blood sugar crashes. And when it crashes, we feel hungry and lightheaded and hypoglycemic. And so we eat again, right? The problem here is not, the blue line's a problem, a big problem. And it's why we feel brain foggy and crappy and have all these symptoms. But the other problem is this purple line, which is elevated. When insulin is elevated day after day over a long period of time, we become insulin resistant. This is the root cause of the problem. Eating too much, too often, and we're eating processed fiber strip foods. Now, before we got on this terrible diet, the blood sugar roller coaster diet, for thousands of years, we have been fasting and feeding. And for thousands of years, we've never had a diabetes problem or a obesity problem. We've never had a cardiovascular problem. We've never had any of these, chronic progressive illnesses that are all lifestyle related, right? We were always fasting and feeding. When we're fasting, we're not starving. No, our bodies were engineered by a creator or by evolution or by whatever you believe in to be amazing at switching fuel sources. They can switch from food fuel over to fat fuel. And our bodies and brains actually work fantastically on fat. Now, in order for our bodies to be able to burn fat, we have to stay away from this roller coaster. Because when insulin is flooding our system, it makes it very, very difficult for our bodies to burn fat. So what that means is we have to stop snacking. Now, this is the hard part, right? Because for the last 50 years, we've all been cultured to snack. There's a way to make this so easy. So easy. And I'll show you what it is. Now, when it's time to eat, who likes food? Everyone, right? I live for food. Food's like the thing I wake up and look forward to. Nobody wants to be on a diet. So it's important that we're able to enjoy good food. Otherwise, it's unsustainable. We will eventually fall off the wagon. We will quit. We will have lots of good Mondays and lots of terrible weekends followed by another good Monday. That's my whole life. So it's important to avoid glucose and insulin spikes and avoid overeating if we're going to enjoy food. And again, this is the hard part. But there's a way to make it a lot easier too. So how do we do it? Well, if we know that fiber is amazing, that fiber being removed from the diet got us sick, and that putting it back can help us get unsick. And if we also know that intermittent fasting is a good way to burn through all the excess body fat, keep insulin levels low, and regain some insulin sensitivity, Why not just combine the two? And that's what this protocol is all about. So if you're on the protocol and you're not sure you fully understand it yet, I hope that this has helped. If you're not on the protocol yet, let me show you how it works, okay? Oops. We're going to skip through those slides, go a little fast today. Okay, this is how the protocol works. We got breakfast, we got lunch, and we got dinner, right? So on this protocol, most of us are fasting one meal a day. And the easiest one, for lots of reasons, which we won't get into, is breakfast. Now, you can fast whichever meal you'd like, but I encourage you to consider breakfast. Trust me, it's the easiest one. Now, when we cut out breakfast, our insulin levels remain low. We are fasting. This allows our body to burn body fat for fuel. You'll be as productive as can be in the morning. You're at work, you're at school, you're doing whatever you're doing. Your mind is sharp on those ketones as your body is burning fat for fuel. You're literally eating your love handles for breakfast. Won't I be hungry? Maybe at first, but once you get used to it, once you become more fat adapted, it actually feels fantastic. And you'll feel worse actually when you have the juice and toast instead of fasting. Trust me. Okay, now, when it comes to lunch and dinner, the goal is to preface the meal with the fiber. Lead with fiber. And by leading with fiber is what fills us up and helps us eat less. So it helps us eat less, yes. But the other thing that it does is it keeps these glucose and insulin spikes in check. So it doesn't spike the way it otherwise would. This helps us, again, keep insulin levels low. The opposite of high insulin levels is low insulin levels. So that is what we're going for. Now, this may sound difficult because you're like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Just drink water? Well, that's boring, and I know I'll cheat. And I agree. I tried intermittent fasting 20 times and cheated every time, right? Until this. And other people might say, well, how do you expect me to just have a garden salad in my back pocket with a bunch of fruits and veggies and herbs and seeds, right? What if I'm at a friend's house? I can't say, hey, can you give me a garden salad before whatever it is you were about to serve me? What if I'm in my car? What if I'm at the airport? What if I don't like vegetables, right? So the way this protocol works is like this. When you skip a meal, you are saving money, right? You're not eating something, and you would have spent money on whatever that something was. Now, for $5, you can't even get breakfast at McDonald's. But let's say you save $5 for a meal. If you take this $5 and you use it, you can buy things that actually make fasting and fiber easy. So in the morning or in the evening, if you're me today, I sip Unimate. The Unimate is the most amazing thing for fasting because it makes you forget about food. It does a lot of other things. It keeps your insulin levels low. There's no sugar in it. It is unbelievable. It puts you in a great mood, and you're fasting and you're forgetting about food, right? And so I sip this throughout the morning. And I usually sip it between meals too. I'm usually doing at least 2 Unimate a day now. I've fallen in love with it. I crave it. So then before meals, I use the same blend of plant fiber that was studied at the University of Sydney. The Cleveland Clinic said that this product could change the world. I use this same product before my meals. And this is what it looks like. You get some water. You take the packet of fiber and you tear off the top and you dump it in the water. And then you shake it like 2 times, like this, and you simply drink it down. Now, right now, it's the consistency of like orange juice, maybe orange juice with no pulp. It's very thin. But if this sits for a moment, and this is why we would drink it right away normally, if this sits for a moment, it's going to start to thicken and expand and create a gel, okay? Now, when the guy who's failed every diet, started doing this, it was so easy for me because I wasn't counting calories. I wasn't eliminating sugar. I wasn't doing extreme exercise. I was fasting through a meal. I mean, the fasting is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, right? But the fasting is difficult. So this just makes it so easy. And then the fiber is doing a lot of heavy lifting. And you could get fiber. You could just go build a garden salad every day at the produce section. But I never had time for that or the discipline to do that. And it's also expensive in places where produce is expensive. So this just makes it so convenient. I went on the protocol and truthfully, oh, and by the way, it pays for itself, right? Because you got the $5 you save and that covers the cost of the protocol. So I went on this and it took a month or so before I started to really I felt the difference right away, but to see a difference, it took some time. And then I felt like my love handles literally just shrank. I don't know the word. started to get stories from everyone. And then I was just fully convinced that this protocol is going to change the world. All right, now Trent has been talking a lot. I need to take a little drink of water. And I also want to get to some of these comments in the chat and then get to some of our experts who are on the line. Okie dokie. Technology. Lots of people are helping me with that. Yvette says she's finishing a 28-hour fast in the morning. Oh, that's awesome, Yvette. I just did a 48-hour fast. Hey, I don't expect everybody to do extended fasting. Now, I like to do it because I'm a little bit of a lab rat for myself. And the extended fasting has been really good for me. But you don't necessarily have to do that. For those of you that are doing it and loving it, I love it too. I'm at a 24.5-hour fast. Way to go, Tanya. This is crazy. You guys are doing great. Boogie Foot, fasting in this system has been incredibly massive for this diagnosed type 1 diabetic. So that is a good segue. We are going to, we're going to talk about Boogie and type 1 diabetes for a second. Because type 1 diabetes is very different than prediabetes and very different than type 2 diabetes, right? Only about 10% of people with diabetes have type 1 diabetes. We're going to talk about that. There's one quick question. And Greg 6 says this has been incredible for reducing his neuropathy pain. Me and Greg have talked about this ad nauseum. Greg was a stranger to me. He found the protocol from TikTok. He went on the protocol, and 80 to 90% of his neuropathy pain is now gone. So happy for you, Greg. So Yandia Teklu is asking, how long after drinking Balance can I have lunch? You want to go for 5 to 15 minutes. Now, guys, sometimes when I'm going to have a big, a big, delicious, naughty meal, I will do 2 packets of Balance. So double the water, double the Balance. This helps fill me up so that instead of eating an entire box of pizza, I have a couple of slices and I'm good. And it really helps trap that glucose and slow down the digestion of everything. Now, this is our fiber blend. Now, plastic is slippery, so this isn't the best container. Your stomach's a lot less slippery. But if you can look at it, it's starting to line the walls of this glass. And this is what happens around the food that you eat. It's repackaging the food in fiber. It is amazing. I mean, it works so well. And there's nothing I can find on the planet that works as well as it. Okay, back to type 1 diabetes. We have an expert on tonight's call. Her name is her name is Lindsay Venn. She is a PA, and Lindsay, I know a lot of other things. One of the founding members of the Metabolic Society of Health Practitioners. Hope I said that right. And Lindsay's been an amazing guest for 2 weeks, and this is the 3rd week we've had her. Lindsay is going to talk a little bit about the difference between type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and insulin resistance. So Lindsay, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Trent. Boy, you did a great job. Thanks for the segue and getting us starting to talk a little bit more about diabetes. This really came about primarily because of a lot of the questions that we've had as of late when it comes to who with diabetes can we actually help? Who do we have to be concerned about? What do I tell somebody if they ask me about this program and diabetes? And so I'm going to be quick with this too, so there's lots of time for questions, but I'm just going to hit on this. Type 2 diabetes, 34.2 million people in the United States have it. It is probably the biggest cause of all chronic disease that we have going on, and it is caused by insulin resistance. That is good news. That means we can reverse it. We can change our food. We can change our timing of our food, and we can reverse it to help people not just treat their diabetes, but to actually cure, reverse, and heal from their diabetes. This is the most common form. We look for A1Cs greater than 6.5 or fasting glucose is greater than 126. Some of these people can be insulin dependent, and we'll get into that, but they don't have to be. And that's how we can reverse this, is we can reverse the insulin resistance and help them get off. And then again, most of these people are overweight or obese, which we can help. Type 1, as Trent was talking about, this is very different. This is a very small amount of the people who have actual diabetes. They have to take insulin because they do not make any of their own. These typically start in young people, though we have started to see an increase in prevalence in older people. It's been quite surprising, actually. The bad part here, and where the Unicity program comes into play, is that these people can, and most often do, develop insulin resistance and now become double diabetic. So again, we can help these people decrease the amount of insulin they take. We can reverse the insulin resistance that they've generated on top of their type 1 by changing the food and changing the timing of the eating. This does require medical supervision. Make sure if you're type 1 that you have somebody involved who has experience to help you through some of the nuances of how to manage your insulin while changing your food. Red flags. These are some of the questions that have come up that I just really wanted to point out to those people who are talking to their friends and talking to their family members. Anyone who is on insulin, whether it be short acting or long acting, needs to be cautious with this. It will definitely help. We can definitely improve what's going on, but you need to work with an experienced provider. Medications that are called SGLT2 inhibitors, so things like Farxiga, Jardiance, Invokana, those ones can be problematic with something called euglycemic ketoacidosis. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, but be aware of those medications. Sulfonylureas are pills that a lot of the old school doctors will put their type 2 diabetics on. This can create hypoglycemic events, which can be problematic in patients who are changing again their diet or if they're doing some fasting. So we got to pay attention. Things like glyburide, glimepiride, glipizide are examples. And then again, patients who are on multiple medications. We know that most Americans have high cholesterol. It's like Yvette was saying, they've got their heart pill, they got their sugar pill, they've got their depression pill, they've got all these different pills. If you're one of those people, you need to work on getting some supervision when you change your food. So some of these terms I really just wanted to clarify. Ketoacidosis, we've heard it a couple of times this week. There's two kinds of ketoacidosis. There's diabetic ketoacidosis and there's euglycemic ketoacidosis. These are both very dangerous. They are something that you want to avoid. Diabetic happens when these insulin-dependent diabetics don't take their insulin, or when they're first diagnosed, they're not making any insulin. So they have the combination of high blood sugar, high ketones, no to very little insulin, again, very dangerous because they become acidotic. Euglycemic to me is almost even more of a concern because people don't know that they have it. Their blood sugars are normal. They are typically making insulin. They don't have a diagnosis of type 1, but what's going on? They're now acidotic. Well, a lot of times this is those SGLT2 inhibitors in combination with a lot of fasting or low carbohydrate diets. Nutritional ketosis is a great thing. It's a very healthy thing. It's a very natural thing. It's something that we want people to become, to get into this state of nutritional ketosis. That's where the fasting and the fiber can definitely help. So when it comes to this system, I can't recommend it more for any diabetic that's out there, any and all. I was telling Yvette and Shannon about it. I have a friend who has a 6-year-old obese type 1 diabetic. She was just diagnosed. She's very picky, like a lot of kids are. She's, struggling with keeping her carbohydrate intake down. So she's using more and more insulin and getting heavier and heavier and heavier. This would be great for her. I've reached out to her. I'm hoping that this can help people who have a hard time really, really curbing their diet to where it needs to be. How do we address it otherwise without more medication and things like insulin? So anyway, if you have somebody that you're worried about, if your friend or family member is, please refer them to an experienced provider. I'm always available. I can help people nationwide as well. And anyway, questions?
Lindsay, thank you so much. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to just spotlight you here in case anybody has a direct question for you. So guys, the time is really yours. If anybody has questions, if anybody's got some wins that they want to share, I'd love to hear about those too, right? But if anybody has questions, I saw one question come through. I'll bring on Yvette Oxford as well. I'm going to spotlight you, Yvette. Yvette is a nurse and a diabetes educator that has put literally thousands of people on this protocol and has helped heal and help so many people. And, Yvette and I met through TikTok and have become great friends. But I'm going to bring Yvette in as a spotlight so that if people have questions, you guys can feel free to answer some of these questions. So one question that just came in is, what do you do if people are feeling nauseous or dizzy when starting the protocol? And I'll just start on that and see if the other two have any comments for it. If somebody's taking, and this goes into what Lindsay was just saying, if somebody is taking medications that are pushing their blood sugar down and they go on this protocol, well, this protocol is going to help them get their blood sugar down naturally. And so if their blood sugar has come down naturally and then they've got this artificial drug pushing it down lower and lower, it could potentially get too low. So as blood sugar goes down, if the nausea or the dizziness or the lightheadedness is coming from low blood sugar, then that would be an opportunity to work with your doctor. You should do it with your doctor but that would be an opportunity to work with your doctor and either reduce or perhaps eliminate the medication, which is a big, big win, right? So that would be my take.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had several people this week tell me they're off their blood pressure meds. They've gone so low. And I always tell my high polypharmacies, you know, they're on everything. You really have to do a lot of monitoring of your glucose. Most of them that come with all that have a CGM, you know, but we don't, as a diabetes educator, we don't watch glucose until they come in every 3 months, unless they're on an injection. So if they're just on, well, unless they're on sulfonylureas, I guess, and SGLT2s, but with the system, yeah, you're right. But
So the other thing for these patients who are not necessarily diabetic or on medications too, the thing to pay attention to is if you're one of those, you know, 9 out of 10 people who doesn't know they have it, the chance of you actually being able to make ketones right away from starting this program is very small. The more sick you are, the more overweight you are, the more chronic disease that you may or may not have, the more abdominal adiposity, that apple shape versus that pear shape, the less likely you are to be able to make ketones. We get glucose down and you don't make ketones, you're not having a whole lot of energy. And so that can also be another problem of this. We also encourage things like electrolytes, good hydration to help with some of that dizziness as well. So there's a lot of different nuances. And the great thing about this program is that the people are amazing and they respond to you so quickly and you get so many pieces of advice. So if you ever have an issue, always reach out.
yeah. And
Okay,
as far
great
as I've
question.
got a lot of questions today from type 1 parents. I mean, today on my live, and a lot of them I said was type 1 parents. The one thing that I tell them is it increases insulin sensitivity. So most of the patients have, if they're pumpers, they're going to have to change their what's called insulin sensitivity factors, their ISF. So I just tell the parents, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. If I have a child that's not insulin sensitive, this is a great sensitivity, like a metformin, increasing insulin sensitivity. So I've had a lot of type 1s today for some reason. Anyway.
Okay, well, thanks. You guys are experts, and it's so cool to hear you answer these questions. iPhone 5 Richard says, started on April 6, 2023. My bad cholesterol was 149. On 7/11, Slurpee Day, it was 63. So it is reduced. It's less than half. The system works. iPhone Richard, so happy for you. It works fantastically. If people use it properly, it doesn't let them down. If you're using it and it doesn't feel like it's working, you may not be using it properly, or you may just need to give it some time. It's interesting what Lindsay just said. You know, I wondered why some people go on this protocol and they just see results right away in terms of like body fat loss, and why that didn't happen for me. I was a little bit jealous and maybe even frustrated and maybe a little bit ready to quit when it wasn't happening for me as fast as it was happening for other people. But that's interesting what you just said, Lindsay, because if I'm really glucose adapted, and I have not really allowed my body for a long period of time, let's say, to tap into fat, then there may be a little bit of a transition where the body is like, I do not like this, and I'm just going to give you low energy and not burn any fat because I don't really know how to do that. Once I got into the fat, I felt fantastic. I saw results, and they were measurable results. I mean, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, I've lost 2 pounds. Like, you could see my pictures. It was like, okay, what did you do? Right. And so, is there a way to speed that up? Hydration, you mentioned, electrolytes. Is there any other way to speed that up, to switch over from glucose adapted to fat adapted and see results faster that you're aware of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is where MCT oil and coconut oil play a big role. So we can help the body learn how to use ketones for fuel by giving it a fuel source that readily turns into ketones. And so that's why there is one of the Unicity products that actually has MCT oil in it. And I'm excited to try that because I haven't tried it yet, but that's a wonderful tool, especially for people who are having significant fatigue, brain fog, that kind of thing while fasting.
Okay, so maybe I'll show that. I have never shown this or talked about it, but now I'm kind of like, wait a second, this could be a really good thing for people that are struggling to switch over to fat adapted or to fat fuel, right? What about extended fasting? We talked about that a little bit. Is that a good way to like punch through that wall and get over to the fat, is to do an extended fast? Or is that not recommended for somebody that's trying to ease their way into this to do that, to do an extended fast? What do you think?
That's a great question, and Yvette, you can pipe in if you want, but I typically recommend for people to ease into it more. Once you feel like you are not having that symptomatic effect of like a 16-8 fast, that's when you want to start just pumping it out. And I usually say, okay, go to an 18-6, now go to a 24, now do an OMAD. That to work in that regard, because some of the symptoms can get, I'm sure Yvette knows too, with some of her longer fasts, you go, whoa, there's something going on here where I'm not feeling my brain quite as much as I want. So we go slow.
Yeah, and yesterday I was feeling that dehydration because I was really, and I just drank a crap ton of salt water and I feel great. Like I literally just made myself salt water. It was that simple, right? Because, you know, insulin's an antidiuretic, and with the water goes the electrolytes, you know, salt follows water. So you have to remember you're not just drinking water all day. So
That's okay. So this is helpful. I'm actually learning a lot here. I'm kind of trying to walk back through my experience because I know I've read a lot of Jason Fung's work. You know, when I was going down the rabbit hole on this stuff, he always recommended that his super sick type 2 diabetic patients that were on every medication under the sun, they would start with a 36-hour or 72-hour fast. And maybe he was trying to punch a hole through and get over to the fat faster for them. But maybe that's a little bit, maybe that's a big ask for somebody that's never even done a 12-hour fast. Now you're asking them to go 36 hours and they're like, this is going to kill me, right? So I like those two approaches. Now people are asking about this other blend of Unimate. So the Unimate that I've got right here is the Unimate lemon. And I just pulled it up on my cart. This is the Unimate lemon and the lemon ginger. And, you know, these are, you're probably familiar with, but there is a blend of Unimate called Unimate Fuel, which has been infused with MCT oil. In fact, Ben Bickman, when he was on the, and he still is on the scientific advisory board for the manufacturer, he helped put together this Unimate Fuel that has some extra fat. It is delicious. I personally do not like too sweet. So even though everybody else likes the salted caramel, I like the natural one, but that may be something to try if, and by the way, it will make you, one serving of that makes me not want to eat the whole day. So it's very, very good for appetite too. Okay. Stephen D. Ward says, autophagy has become my new favorite word. Now, Stephen, you said that you were willing to share your experience. If that offer is no longer on the table because you're in a bad spot to share your experience, then I won't put you on the spot. But if you're willing, we'd love, okay, we're going to invite you to unmute. He said unmute. Let's let Stephen Ward unmute. Just 1 second, Stephen. And I know you took a little bit of a different approach. So I think you did some extended fasting, which is not required, but may be helpful for some. So go ahead, Stephen.
Well, I was very determined to get the extra weight off of me. I am a former very obese person, 300 pounds, and I had gastric sleeve surgery in 2011, and I lost 85 pounds on that. And then I got married, and, you know, you start eating wrong and so on and so forth. So I had about 40 pounds I needed to lose so I could get down to my goal weight. So April 1st, I started with a 5.5 day water fast, and I had no problem doing that whatsoever. And then I started 18-6 fasting. Then I ran into you on TikTok and thought, ooh, I got to get that stuff. So I bought the protocol, started using it, and started learning about fasting. I think fasting is fascinating, with the way the body repairs itself. That's why I mentioned the autophagy. It's just I sometimes fast, do the 36-hour fast through the week, and because I want to make sure I'm in autophagy, so I'm it's repairing whatever. I apologize about these little things on my face, dermatology. So it always shows up really good on video conference. So anyway, today I weighed 197, down from 235 pounds since April 1st.
Awesome.
And I do the Unimante, which has replaced my coffee. I don't need the coffee. And then I eat one meal a day, really. Like today, I haven't even thought about eating, but I drink my my balance, and then didn't eat. So that's fine. I'll eat something a little later, but it's what's really important is that this just fit right into my lifestyle. It's not hard to do. I'm not hungry. I've also learned you don't really need as much food as we eat. Really do not need it. And so I limit my calorie intake to under 1,000 calories. And so, I'm getting close to where I got to worry about maintenance. What will I do with maintenance when I get down to my goal weight? So anyway, it's been terrific doing the 2 balances a day and the Unamonte in the morning. I run 2 companies out of my house, and I have no brain fog. I'll be 70 in January, so I want to make sure that that brain fog goes away, and so I can talk to my friends who have that brain fog and can't remember anything. And so it's really important to me, and so I appreciate the time to tell you about my story.
Stephen, we appreciate the time, and thanks for sharing it. And I mean, you probably inspired people who have struggled with the same things and are feeling a little bit afraid or frustrated or hopeless. And so thanks so much. That means a lot to us that you'd come on, and it's fun to meet a new stranger who's now a friend. So thanks, Stephen. Really appreciate it. Amazing results. Credit to you. I mean, what you did took some discipline and took some guts, but look at the results and just, wow, bravo.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, one thing I wanted to point out, this is especially true for women. There's a great book called Fast Like a Girl. And Fast Like a Girl is a great read because women and their cycle can complicate the fasting process in some cases. So if you're a female and you're doing this and you're not feeling like the results are coming as fast as you'd like, you should check out that book. Or if you have specific questions, feel free to pipe up and we can answer some of those specific questions. But yeah, intermittent fasting can really be, if you harness the power of intermittent fasting and understand how it works with your cycle and things like that, you can really accelerate it. And truthfully, I'm kind of, well, I'm not the expert on this for obvious reasons, but there are some people who have studied a lot and learned a lot, and it's been very helpful to them. So, okay. What is brain fog? So brain fog is something that happens where you have a lack of concentration. Some people describe it as a lack of motivation or willpower, where you're at work and you know the things that you should be doing, but instead you feel like opening your phone and scrolling on social media, or you feel like instead you are going to go play that little farm game where you're growing turnips in a digital world and selling those turnips to a market of people in a digital world as well. Hey, I've been there. And that is like one of the things that happens when you're brain foggy. You just do not have the follow through to finish the thoughts that you have. And brain fog is something that happens when your blood sugar is high. It's one of the main symptoms of insulin resistance. It's just really, and maybe there's a better way to describe this. Lindsay or Yvette, I'm using Farmville to describe brain fog. Do you guys got any better analogies?
I hear that term all the time. So I would tell you, for me, it just, when people describe it to me, it's just that cloudiness. It's that walking in the room and you don't remember why you walked into the room. It's having a little bit of difficulty with recall. It is, what was all on my list today and why didn't I get to it? So very mild, but it's actually impactful, and changing the food and the fasting makes a huge difference.
Love it. Thank you. So Andrea's going to ask a question. This will be our last question, unless somebody's got something that's really short and sweet. What should we be eating while using the protocol? Low carb or what? Right. So carbohydrates cause blood sugar and insulin spikes more than proteins and more than fats, especially refined carbohydrates. And so if you would like to maximize your results, and your goal is to lose as much weight as possible or get your blood sugar under control as fast as possible, then a low carb diet may be a good idea for you. At the same time, many people only have willpower, focus, and bandwidth to do one thing at a time. And if you're not ready to change your diet or your lifestyle, this protocol can really, really help you. It can meet you where you are, eating what you're eating, and now you're replacing one meal and doing the fiber before your other 2 meals. And there are lots of people who have had incredible results doing nothing else differently. But I don't want to give people a license. I mean, one of the things I if there's one thing that I dislike about this protocol, it's that I can get away with murder on it and not pay a high price. And so, you know, good is the enemy of great, right? And if you want to get great results, then yeah, it's good to improve your diet, your exercise, to build lean muscle mass, and to do all the things. But for me, I just found like it's gotten so much easier to do some of those things when I'm not brain foggy, when I'm not, you know, when I don't have a bunch of extra weight on my joints. So this will help you get there if you're not there yet. But if you're there, then yeah, low carb is a great way to do it and accelerate it. Okay, 8 more questions. No, 8 more comments. These are not comments. These are thank yous. Guys, thank you. Lindsay and Yvette, thank you both so much. It's great to have you on. You guys make these calls way more valuable. Whoa, Yvette Oxford, Mrs. Alabama, Mrs. LSU is wearing a BYU sweatshirt. She knows that that's my alma mater and that I'm a BYU fan, which, you know, we're kind of the laughing stock of college sports, but thanks, Yvette. Appreciate you for giving us some love. So, all right, guys, we're going to be back here next week. We hope you'll join in. We want the whole world to know about this. If there's people that you know that are struggling, suffering, and that need help, they can join these calls. And whether they start the protocol or not, if they learn that insulin resistance is what they're really fighting against, it really, really helps to know your enemy. Then you can strategize and come up with an attack plan. So spread the word, change lives. Let's make this world a better place. Love you all. Have a nice night.